Hi. At the beginning of your NQT year, it might be that schools, for a time, will need to keep on doing some remote teaching for some year groups. This will be a brief overview of some of the issues associated with remote teaching and a bit of a look at some of the different ways in which it can be done. Only a small percentage of children have no access to the internet whatsoever. But even where children have no internet access, there's a much larger percentage where they have little or no access to the appropriate equipment on which to follow online learning. So in some homes, there's one laptop that maybe need to be used by adults for work or to be shared among different children in different year groups. In many homes, a smartphone is the only actual equipment available that they might use for online learning. There's been some research about how effective distance learning can be, and it's very effective when done well. But the type of teaching that we've seen over the last few months is not really distance learning, it's emergency remote teaching, with little or no time to prepare, and in particular to overcome the digital divide by ensuring that laptops are loaned out with a strong loan agreement, etc., and no time to think through the best ways in which to prepare and present lessons and learning to children. An EEF review found that distance learning can be very effective, but it did give lots of caveats that their evidence review was not based on the sort of emergency that we're seeing now. They did conclude, though, that the format of the teaching was less important than the quality of the teaching. So, when teaching remotely, it's still important to consider, for instance, subject knowledge, small steps, how to reduce extraneous cognitive load, how to make the instructions really clear, feedback, metacognition, and scaffolding and modelling. So key features of ordinary in the class teaching are still really important when remote teaching. So let's look at the different formats that schools have used in the last few months and might continue to use in the future for at least some of the time. Where children have no digital access, there have been two options. One has been to make learning packs, packs containing worksheets and/or activity sheets. The disadvantage of these is that they can end up as teaching by asking if they're just worksheets for children to follow and fill in. They might make important mistakes on the sheets, and they may not be able to be. These may not be able to be corrected by parents or even older siblings. So there's little chance of feedback, as it's unlikely that there'll be an exchange of the packs backwards and forwards between children and teachers. But you might argue that these are better than nothing, especially when they include a level of instruction and outline activities that children can do with help. BBC Bitesize have made a series of programmes, and the advantage of these is that they are really accessible because most people, if not almost everybody's got a television. The disadvantage is the lack of feedback, and the content is not tailored to specific groups of children, but they are very good, and there's some talk at the moment, beginnings of some talk, about expanding this into a virtual national school. Where children do have access to digital equipment, there are two different types of teaching: synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous teaching is where the teaching's live and children dial in to the teaching as it's happening via Zoom or some other platform. Asynchronous is where it's recorded and children access it later on at their own time and place via a digital platform. The EEF research suggested that there's no real difference in effectiveness between those two. I think synchronous teaching is more common in secondary schools, and there are safeguarding concerns around this type of teaching as not all platforms are secure. And of course, the timing and type of access can also be a problem. Let's look at the asynchronous teaching, as that's the most common, and it has a range of different ways that it can be done. One platform is the Oak National Academy, and that's a group of teachers given a grant by the DFE to go and produce programmes online for every year group, and they're accessible on the internet. Of course, the disadvantage again is that they're not tailored to your group of children, and there's no way of really giving feedback, but they are very, very good programmes. Some schools use Google Classroom. You can set this up with a Google account, and each of the children need a Gmail address. You can set up a virtual classroom and invite children to it using an access code where you've created assignments, and those can be created using all of the different Google apps. So for instance, you can use Google Slides to make presentations, you can use Google Forms to set up questionnaires, and it's really easy because Google own YouTube. It's really easy to embed YouTube videos. That means that the work that the children do is set for them by their own teacher to fit their needs. You can also give individual written feedback in Google Classroom to children using this platform by email. It's got an email facility within it. It's a bit of a faff to set up, but where schools are used to using it, it does seem to work well. Probably the most common way of getting content to children has been through school websites, and that's been done in a variety of ways. Often teachers have put the instructions and links to the websites and existing online videos that might contain some instructional steps and things for the children to do just on their website, just as a set of instructions and links. Others put on Word and PDF documents that may have some instruction and activities for the children to complete. Others have PowerPoints which can lead the children through instructions step by step. The children can go through these at their own pace. And it's worth saying here that one of the important things is that the important differences is that some ways of remote teaching have the innate ability to have instruction. And that's what's really important, the instruction side of it, rather than simply putting up a bunch of questions for children to answer. So a PowerPoint's quite good because it can develop the set of instructions step by step. And in some schools, teachers simply use their phones to record themselves, either telling stories or even making an instructional video and uploading it to a school YouTube channel for children to access. And they've done that really, really well at Ash Grove. This has the advantage of the children being able to see and hear their own teacher, and the content can be set for their actual class. So I've given some examples at the end of the video on the rest of the page for you to look at and see how, consider how you might do that. In Zoom, you can use the record function and share your screen so that you can share, for instance, a PowerPoint and talk about it with you on a little box on the screen. So you can include what you want for your actual class. Again, set exactly what your class needs on the PowerPoint. And the children can also see and hear you. But a disadvantage might be the sort of split attention between the information that's on the screen and the live view in the corner. That sort of split of attention might add to extraneous cognitive load possibly. Also, as you narrate the video, you have to make sure you make no mistakes in what you're saying because it's recording you live, so you haven't got much time to think about what you're saying for each slide. It's very easy to use though, and it's very easy to upload to YouTube. A really good way of making sure that you're giving the content that the class really needs is to make a very specific PowerPoint. You can then plan out carefully all of the aspects of the instructions and the explanations that you'll need. You can take the time to think carefully about the worked examples, the different steps, and what you're going to say on each slide. You can either narrate it live or record what you're going to say separately on each slide. And you can think about how you might promote, for instance, metacognition by talking to yourself in the narration about how you might go about the problem or how you might monitor what you're doing as you're going through. I've made another little video about how to turn a PowerPoint into a video and then put it up for YouTube for you to have a look at and try. These little self-made videos also work really well on a smartphone. So if a smartphone's the only access that a child's got, then they can watch the little self-made videos from PowerPoint with your narration quite easily on the screen of the phone. I'll share some different ones that I've made and some that the teachers at Ash Grove have made. The real difference between the two is whether you narrate live, which is quite easy to do, or whether you spend that little bit of extra time and narrate on each individual slide as you're going through. Whatever format you use, you need to consider some key aspects. You need to introduce small steps at a time, not just in maths, but in any subject. You need to reduce the extraneous cognitive load by making sure that the slides are not really crowded and that anything on the slide is there for a reason to do with learning. The instructions need to be really clear and concise with worked examples and partially worked examples. And you might want to start each little video with a recap or a retrieval of some work from the previous one. Trying to get the work that they have to do, such as answering questions, on the video itself, so that they don't have to work from worksheets later on, although there could be some to do on a worksheet later on for more practice. But the basic question answering, I think, is better done embedded into the actual video itself. So it might be best to, for instance, show a worked example, then get them to do one there on their own, so you can put a pause button on so that they can stop the video, do their version of it, and then put the video back on and show them the answer and how it was arrived at. So there is a little bit of inherent feedback in that. But feedback's the hardest to achieve, as many children won't be able to do the work and others will have misconceptions that you won't be able to see. But setting up an email address so that they can contact you, just set up a simple Gmail one, can be helpful to give them encouragement or tips if they are not very confident with the work. So feedback through email is quite helpful. There are many other ways and many other formats other than the ones that I've spoken about, and we're all just at the beginning. You know, not just trainees, but everybody's at the beginning of this kind of remote working. So in some later on years, we might look back and think how primitive we were to make videos from PowerPoints or YouTube videos. On the page underneath this video, there should be some activities that you can try where you can make some of your own resources, just so you've had at least a bit of a go at it if you want to, and then you can share them with everyone else if you want. Good luck.